Hello, my name is Matthew Morris and I work at the University of Salford, and I'm going to give you a short introduction to working with clay and working with wire to make little sculptures so that you can express your ideas. First of all, let's start with the clay. The clay we'll be working with today is air drying clay. It's similar to the clay that's fired in a kiln, but this doesn't need to be fired. It dries over a period of weeks on its own. You can't use it to make plates and cups out of. It's for making little sculptures. But it's non-toxic and a good clay to use for general purpose modelling. It's what schools use. So there we are. It comes in a big bag of 12.5 kilos, and at first on your hands it'll feel cold and a bit icky, but as soon as you get some dust on your hands from the clay, it'll start to feel much more comfortable. Now, if you give clay to any toddler or nursery school kid, they know what to do with it. You just squeeze it and squeeze it until you get the shape that you want. And if that's the way you want to go, then that's absolutely fine. But there are a few techniques that it's worth learning about so you can create more complex forms. A sculptor, if they're using clay, will use an additive and subtractive method so that they may start with a shape and take some clay in their hands and then start to pinch pieces of clay where they don't want a shape to be, and take a little pinch of clay and stick it on where they do want a piece of clay to be. So if you were building up a face shape, we would, if we wanted to put some ears on, we could just pinch and build up little nibble by nibble the shapes that we wanted on the side. And then if we wanted a nose, we would just keep adding little bits and smoothing it in until we get the shape we want. And if you look at something like a bronze casting in a museum, you will see all the little pinches of clay in the bronze. And so that's one way of building up little shapes like that. And that's how a professional sculptor would use it. The only other tips that I can give you are that if you want things to stick together, or shapes that are long and thin or stand up, then although the clay will roll readily into sausages, once they get to a certain point they're not very strong, and you can't put something heavy on the top. Say if you wanted to make a flower, it would be difficult to get that to stand up and then to hold this piece on the top. And the way to get around that is to make what we call an armature, which is here, using some wire. You'll have some aluminium and some copper wire to make a little shape to go inside to hold it together and make it strong. If you've got some wire, all you need is some snips to cut it. And the only real safety feature is if you're cutting a tiny bit off the end, don't look at it. You need to aim it away from yourself because sometimes they shoot off like little bullets. So try to avoid cutting very small bits off. You'll end up with a piece of wire thus. You can straighten it just by holding it in two hands and running it along the edge of the table. You get a nice straight piece, if you need a straight piece. I'm just going to trim the ends off so that we can use this bit. So, for instance, if I wanted to make a figure of a little person, I might just take the wire round in the middle to make a little head shape, give it a few twists, and then make an arm shape, and bring it back, and an arm shape and bring it back, and then another few twists together to make a body, and then some twists to make some legs. Once I've made the armature, I'll just twist those arms to make them a little bit thinner. What you have is a little sculpt to which you can take little bits of clay and you can sort of stick them and contain the wire in the middle, and then the wire will hold all the thin shapes together. So I'm making a nice thin arm there just by cladding the wire with clay. So if you were making something and you wanted it all to be clay, but you needed them to stand up and stop where they are set, you would make the wire inside. Similarly, if you wanted to make, say, a stack of 3 balls or a bridge, once this clay dries, it doesn't glue to itself very well. So 3 balls in a stack would, as the clay dried out, eventually lose their grip. So what you would do is make yourself a little armature of wire that you could push all the way through the middle of your sculpture, like making a kebab or what are those strawberries on sticks that you put in a chocolate fountain, and it will all hold together, and even when it's dry it could take a little bit of rough handling and the wire inside will keep it together. I think that's all you need to know for now. Good luck. A good place to start is with a piece of wire, which really you can imagine as a sort of a 3-dimensional line. If you're not confident at drawing, clip yourself a bit of wire. Always get more than you need, because you'd be amazed how much, once it's curled up, that it takes. And you can even sort of write with it, so that you could form letters. Say I was forming an M for my name. It can be a 2D type of activity, but then when you're more confident you can tie other bits of wire on and create sculptural forms. You can wrap it round a pencil to make a spring and pull these apart and flatten them to make whatever shapes that you want. The trick is not to get too hung up about getting it right or making something representative. It's just to handle the materials and then see what comes out. Clay is such a fundamental material. We will all remember Play-Doh and plasticine from school and even nursery, so that once you get it into your hands and start working it, it kind of, that freedom you had as a child to just make things without being judged comes back. Too often as adults we get hung up on getting things right and what other people think. And if you ever go into a nursery, you'll see kids picking up art materials and engaging with them without being told what to do or given instructions. And we lose that a bit as we grow up. So try to connect with your inner child and just enjoy squeezing and forming things in the material, and wait until some sort of idea suggests itself. The good thing about art is that we can wait for inspiration or even a happy accident, serendipity. Something may suggest itself a snake or a bridge or a knot or a tree, and you can work with that, and whether the story comes first or the story comes after, it doesn't really matter. So get stuck in and enjoy yourself.